very good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Ashali from US. A very warm welcome to all the delegates for this distinctive session on Future Plus with the theme, The Art of Public Speaking. The art of public speaking is about connecting with your audience using effective body language, preparing thoroughly, incorporating storytelling, and exuding confidence. If you want to master the art of public speaking, remember three key things: connect, engage, and inspire. First, connect with the audience, understand their needs and interests, speak to their hearts, not just their minds. With this, I would like to invite a great speaker and orator himself as a host coordinator today, Dr. A.G. Unnikrishnan sir. Dr. A.G. Unnikrishnan sir is an endocrinologist and CEO of Diabetes Institute in Pune, a leading diabetes institute in India, and an International Diabetes Federation certified center for education and excellence in diabetes care. He heads the clinical care, research, education, and oversees a philanthropic rural diabetes care program at the institute. He also heads the newly formed Diabetes Research Center. He has published the largest multi-center studies of subjects with pancreatitis and pancreatic diabetes worldwide, in addition to his more than 200 PubMed indexed publications. Dr. Unni received the Jacob Memorial Prize for the best patient care during his MD in CMC Vellore. He has also received awards from organizations like RSSDI and Endocrine Society of India. He has received 10 awards and orations in the last 9 years, including the DTAC Award for the Excellence in Diabetes and Technology and VC Matthew Roy Oration in July 2022. Dr. Unni has edited various journals like Indian Journal of Endocrinology and others, and he's also an editor-in-chief of Journal of Chronicle of Diabetes Research and Practice. It's great to have you here, sir, with us today. I welcome you on behalf of Team USV, and over to you.
Thank you, and I hope I'm audible and the screen is visible.
Yeah, perfectly audible and visible.
So thank you, USV team, Dr. Ashley and team for organizing this. This is by far one of the most successful series that I've been part of. This is season 4. And one of the reasons it's so successful is it takes up topics which are not seen in textbooks, read by journals. It is doctors, masters in the art of medicine and more, who speak to doctors in the language that we doctors can understand and appreciate. And this program has consistently, this is the 4th season, helped people to equip themselves with skills, be it networking, be it collaboration, be it research. It could be setting up a diabetes clinic. It could be establishing one as a speaker for CMEs. It could be getting the economics of practice ready. It could be ethical brand building. We had a session on financial management for doctors. So a lot of useful sessions. And the previous season itself, we had several sessions, including the doctor as author, doctor as a white coat, investor as entrepreneur, as about work-life balance. Today, we are going to have a new topic, which has not been covered before. It's the art of public speaking, and we have wonderful speakers, excellent masters at the craft of speaking, who will talk to us and communicate, who will speak to us about speaking. So this is Dr. Sandeep Julka. Needless to say, I am an admirer. He is, of course, a highly qualified endocrinologist at the Apollo Hospitals Indore, and he runs the healthiest endocrine center in his town, Radiance, practiced for 18 years, has held several posts like the Physicians of Indore chapter, the IMA Indore chapter secretary, done several trials, publications. You can see from the picture that he's a man with many faces and indeed many styles of mustaches and also many styles of attires. And I really enjoy listening to him, seeing him. He's very positive, and I'm especially a fan of his mustache. And I must add that he's also a highly fit person, physically fit, athlete. So a lot of qualities to emulate, and needless to say, a wonderful speaker. Dr. Tejal Lathia is very well known. She's not a rising star. She's a risen star and continues to rise higher. She's one of the top endocrinologists in this part of the country, Navi Mumbai. She practices in the Apollo and Fortis hospitals. Passionate about using the right language for people living with type 2 diabetes, believes in the use of technology for diabetes, PCOS, has been very vocal advocate for women's health, as well as women in science, technology, engineering, and medicine. Several publications, the latest being in the British Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And also she likes to explore the relationship between mothers and daughters with PCOS in the context of hirsutism. Needless to say, an astute clinician and a wonderful communicator who correctly stresses on the importance of language. I've listened to her many times, and her style is unique and also an excellent in communicating the right message. The third speaker is Dr. Prem Narayanan. He is consultant and head of the Department of Endocrinology and Diabetology at Ahalya Diabetes Hospital in Palakkadu. He has several publications to his credit. He has been an invited speaker for national conferences, and he has got a very unique and innovative style of communication, which is extremely unique. I remember once he talked about the misinformation that is being spread about camel's milk. And interestingly, he was sitting on a camel as he delivered that. And on another occasion, I think there was a movie called Pushpa, and he emulated the hero. I'm sure he to communicate messages. So he uses very live visual imagery and communicates. And we are not talking about necessarily speaking to doctors. We are talking also about speaking to the public, and there he scores a lot. And with that, it's time for a poll from our audience. And this is a question for our audience. Dear audience, how frequently do you engage in public speaking? A, very frequently. B, somewhat frequently. C, occasionally. D, rarely. E, never. So while we wait, I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll wait for the audience to come up with their polls. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes.
Can we have the results?
Yes, could we have the results, please? So while we are waiting, let me ask the first question to Dr. Julka, and we'll show you a wonderful video of Dr. Julka as well. As doctors, we talked about history and examination and auscultation and inspection, but we really are not taught about how to speak, communicate, and we learned by watching our teachers. And you can see with each generation, the communication styles are different. So therefore, could you explain to the audience why we are speaking about public speaking and how a doctor can apply public speaking? And of course, most of the doctors here frequently, the opinion poll clearly shows 90% very frequently speak in public and speak to the public. So very important topic. And over to you, Dr. Julka, Dr. Sandeep, your opinion on importance of public speaking.
So namaste and Jai Hind. Thank you so much, Dr. Unnikrishnan. I'm a big fan of you, your style of speaking, and we've been listening to you for almost 2 decades now. Before I start, since I'll be speaking in English, so let's talk about Doha from Kabir. ऐसी बानी बोलिए मन का आपाक होए, औरन को शीतल करे, आपहु शीतल होए. That your language should be such that when you speak, you not only bring an atmosphere of calm around yourself and you yourself get calm. That is one. In 8th, my daughter had Sanskrit, and there was one shlok which I really found very, very interesting. Is Prithvivyam Trivini Ratrani Jalan Anam Subhashitam Mure Pashan Khandeshu Ratna Sangya Vidyate. Meaning thereby that there are 3 gems in the world. That is An, which is grains. Second is water, and third is how you speak. Your speech and how you bring about the change with that. So I think this is in our medical colleges, we've been never taught to speak in public. And I find that it is a lacuna and it's a blind spot. Every day we communicate with our patients, we communicate in public. I remember when we sit down to see reports in my clinic, we are speaking and there are patients waiting. They always observe you, and how you communicate is basically your success depends on your knowledge, one, and how you implement that knowledge in public and how you speak. So your success is basically how you communicate. I think it is very, very important. I'm so happy to be part of this.
Thank you. And before we play the video by Dr. Julka, we'll have another audience poll, as is usual, traditional, which we want to ask the audience, which aspect of public speaking they find the most challenging. So is it organizing and structuring the content? We talked about inspiring, communicating, engaging, and all that, storytelling, but at the end of the day, it's the content that's important. Is that something of concern? Managing nerves and anxiety, engaging the audience effectively using visual aids and technology. What does the audience find most challenging? Let's ask the audience. And while we are asking the audience, we'll play Dr. Julka's video till the marks come. But in this video, I want you to look at Dr. Julka's attire, his hand movements, the way he's standing, aggressive, one hand, one leg on the podium, one on the floor. He never looks at the screen. He's looking at his audience continuously, and you see the number of texts on the screen. It's very minimal. So let's have USP team maybe have Dr. Julka's audio, and then we'll have the answers. Well, we have the answers as well. We can look at it if you want. Yeah, let's have the video.
So can I just give a little bit of context of where I was speaking?
Go ahead.
So this Sunday, I was invited to speak in a foundation, which is the Tableen Foundation. It is an international foundation on nature, nurture, and joy. And I was quoting from the Rig Veda as I was speaking. And I'm sure as we go along, and the esteemed panelists will also speak on, when you dress up for a particular talk, you have to be in line of your topic. You have to dress up according to your topic. And then, of course, then you have to use the language of the one which is easily understood by your audiences. So in the audience, there was a mix of doctors, industrialists, there were students, there were homemakers. And since I wanted to connect nurture, nature, and joy, and nature, I quoted from Rig Veda, and then nurture is what we've done with our bodies and with our environments, plastic, and since we were talking about the World Environment Day. So I'm just saying that everything makes an impact. My saying Jai Hind will do it. My speaking a Kabir Doha will make a difference. My attire will make a difference. And my friend likes my mustaches. That also makes a difference. So everything, contributes to the successful talk.
Wonderful. And I completely agree. So let's see what the audience says about the poll. Well, Dr. Julka, Dr. Sandeep shows absolutely no signs of nerves as he speaks. So anxiety, not there at all. Content, Rig Veda, well, he set the bar really high. And let's see the answers if you have the answers to the poll. Engages, I'm sure that he's engaged with the audience, and he's already used visual tools such as technology. So he's used all the things he's used in the right way. So while we are waiting for that answer, the poll results are here. Most people find the fourth one difficult, visual aids and technology. Well, I think that's the easiest to fix because that's something which just requires training the rest. So that means the content, the organizing and structuring the content, which is in my mind the real thing, the real deal is the content. So that's not a problem. So that's very heartening to know. So with that, we now go on to the question to Dr. Prem. So Dr. Prem, see, we are all doctors. We tell the patient how long to take carbimazole, when to take insulin, when they should take a GLP-1, when they should take metformin, when they should take SU. But the same thing, I've seen many doctors, when they are asked to speak to public, they'll say, no, I'll speak only in English. I won't speak in Malayalam or Hindi. Recently, I gave a talk in Hindi because I didn't mind, because it's okay. Though I'm comfortable with English, I need to get out of that comfort zone. So how is it that you overcome? You've done Pushpa, you've done, I'm sure you've done Bahubali. I've seen you eating food in the department store to prove a point. I've seen you on Camel. I've seen you getting out of the car with a flashy, specs. So how do you overcome that inertia? What are people going to say about me? What about all the people looking at me while this is being shot? How did you build up that confidence and emerge as such a wonderfully, talented speaker?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind words. And also thanks to the team USU also. And thanks to sir once again. So yes, as I was putting it up, initial days, if you ask me, I was not confident on standing on stage at all. I was not at all a person standing on stage or coming in front of any camera or anything like that. But slowly, I would say after the MD days, when I was preparing for DM, I have seen your talks. I still remember IOTA conference. It was in Kochi. I was preparing for the DM entrance examinations at that time. I have definitely, so it was a very important conference. So I met you at that time, and your talk I heard. And apart from that, serially, again, I would say Dr. Arun Menon from Kochi, and serially all these people talking, I was very impressed. And that is also one way that I started thinking it of, like I should take a DM endocrinology, because the subject is apart from that. And the way of presentation, all these things definitely impressed me. And coming from there, slowly build up, I would say that started, even after DM also, like it was initial days again, Sanjay Kalra sir, I would say. Sir was also very helpful because he conducted just after passing out DM, he conducted a meeting called Unnikrishnan. I think Dr. Tejal was also there. And at that time also, we had a lot of discussion on there. Not the usual topic at all. Unnikrishnan, it was all for Yuvas only, to how to build yourself or how to build your confidence and all. We had a lot of presentations on that aspect also, apart from the not the routine ones. So all these things helped me in building up the confidence, overcoming the anxiety. And public speaking, yes, you have to divide into, like I said, 3 ways. That is, one is the CMEs are entirely different. Then educating or spreading awareness among the public is also entirely 2 different zones. And when you are into the social media, what I felt is that even the very layman is all definitely there in the social media. So language, as Sandeep sir was putting it up, language is very, very important. That's why most of the videos I do it in Malayalam, because we know that most of the people who see my videos will be basically from the Kerala side. So Malayalam is definitely important. But even I have got a request, Dr. Saab, आप तो अपने लोगों को सिखा रहे हैं, लेकिन हम लोगों को भी थोड़ा दे देना, ज्ञान दे देना. From the North India also I get from many other colleagues or many other friends that you do it in Hindi also. So in between I do it in Hindi, in between I do it in English also. But major thing, as you see, is Malayalam. And the thing is that when you're speaking to the public, it should be in a very simple word. Because nobody, none of the people, they want to know about the insulin receptor or how is insulin going to act. Because we doctors as clinicians and academicians, we are very much thorough with our subject knowledge and all. But that knowledge, you cannot translate into the public, because they just want to know yes or no. This is going to benefit my diabetes or whether it is going to harm. So like that, so keeping it very simple. So that's how my concept, that is a reels concept, came to the from my team. They told me, sir, you can just try doing reels because that is now the trend. That is, I started 2 years back, I would say. 2021 June only I started. And at that time also, from that time, thought process came into how you can make it like appealing to the public, because in the social media, most of them will be the food blogging video, travel video, or even vehicle videos. All these you will get a good amount of views, and people are very much interested in it. As far as the health is concerned, only those who are affected, they are the one they are only going to be listen to your video. Others, they will just skip it up. So that is how I thought that thought came into my mind, how we can engage even those who are not interested. And that is how I started putting up many of the filmy video dialogues, also mixing it up into the reels. And apart from that, as I was putting up a camel, when I'm talking about a camel milk, I sat on the camel. So that gives an impression, that gives a visual impression also. And I was sat on the elephant, I was sat on the horse also. So like that, changing the setting according to what you are speaking, because that strikes. And that is how many of the times now, many of the patients who are coming, they also, they first itself, if it's a new patient, they say, doctor, we have seen your that horse video, or I have seen your camel, because that has given a striking impression on them. So that, based on the topic you are speaking, you have to set the context also, or your settings also. That again, that is very important. When you're talking to the doctors also, it is similarly in the CMEs or conferences also, engaging the public, those who are in the crowd. That's also very important. As Sanjay Karra sir also always used to say, take many prominent figures will be sitting in the crowd, isn't it? So you can just quote them, because many times I've seen many of my examiners, I tell that my examiner is here. So like that, engaging or engaging the audience also, it's very important, so that they should get enrolled. So with that, I stop here. I've been talking quite, I think I will leave it to the next speaker.
So I think both Dr. Sandeep and Dr. Prem, I think Dr. Sandeep talked about the need for confidence, for dressing, to convey the appropriate, imagery to suit it to the audience. And Dr. Prem talked about how to make it very simple and how to make sure that the people get attracted. And that's very important, because you need to talk to them in a language they can understand. You may be the best endocrinologist in the world. You may be the best diabetes researcher in the world. But if you can't really communicate, then that talent is lost. That, like they said, Goddess Saraswati also needs to reside on the tongue. It is said in Malayalam that somebody who speaks well, they said Saraswati resides on his or her tongue. So that communication should be there. But this is difficult for many people. Many people in front of 1,000 person audience feel that they're going to die of a panic attack. But remember, if they go for smaller meetings, they will be able to live. And as it is said, what doesn't kill you is only going to make you stronger. So Dr. Tejal, doctors, before they are exposed to a big audience where they have nerves and all that, young upcoming doctors who like to be speakers, before they go there, can they try to overcome their fear and present in smaller groups like CMEs, roundtable meetings, to the local doctors, to friends, colleagues? Is it possible to reach the top, like you have reached the top, through baby steps to reach where you are now as a speaker? Because now you are a wonderful speaker, but could you, recount your journey and some suggestions for doctors?
So yeah, I think it always helps to start small, right? You can get the kinks out. So what are the things that your weaknesses are? You can work them out when you're in front of a smaller audience. So one of the tricks, even in a small audience, if you're nervous and you tend to get scared in front of a crowd, is if this is a room, you select 3 people in each direction, to your left, to your right, in the center. And then when you speak, you can look at those particular 3 people. So it looks like you're covering the whole audience, but you're also only making eye contact with 3 people. So if you're very afraid and stage fright is an issue for you, then selecting 2 or 3 people in the audience always works great. The second thing, especially when you're doing a small meeting, I also feel that, like Prem said, we tend to take on too much. So when you're doing a presentation which is small, having just 2 or 3 takeaway points is more than sufficient, because the audience is never going to, you can't teach the entire Cushing's disease to a group of GPs, right? You can never do that. But even if they have 3 takeaway points at the end of the presentation, which tells them that what are the red flags in a person with obesity,
Yes.
and what is the basic test that they need to do, and when do they need to refer. If that's all they take away from your entire presentation, the job is done. So that comes to my second important point, is that whenever you make a presentation, even in a small group, it's very important to know who is the audience. Is it nurses? Is it nutritionists? Is it general practitioners? Is it endocrinologists? So imagine if I have to speak about diabetes to nutritionists, then I know that I can speak more medical jargon. If it's to a group of general practitioners, I need to give them simple things that they can do in the clinic. But if I'm speaking to a group of endocrinologists, then probably I'll present the latest cutting edge science in diabetes. So who is your audience is extremely important. And then customizing your talk to that audience is great. Another point is what Dr. Unnikrishnan, you always insist on, is a case-based presentation, which is interactive in nature. People are answering some of the questions you're asking. The audience is engaged, and then you will not have people falling asleep in the audience. So that's very important. The last point that I would tend to make, which may be politically incorrect, but I'll make it anyway. Whenever we do a presentation in any setting, we're doing it because we want to share our knowledge with people. So we're not trying to show off how much we know, but we're doing it in a way that what we have learned from our practice, we share it with other people, and ultimately we achieve our goal, which is better patient outcomes, better patient awareness, and better health for the people we treat. So I love what Prem said as well. We can't teach complex topics to people, but whenever we are talking, we always try to use simple language, avoid medical jargon, and rather than showing off all that we know, we understand what it is that we can share and maybe focus on that. I think that's pretty good.
I think these are, excellent ideas about just looking at 2 or 3 people in the audience, especially if there's some friendly faces. You can find comfort in them. Somebody is nodding away, then not nodding away to sleep, but actually nodding at you. You might like to, focus on that person, and also making things very simple. And as I said, some people, they just try to focus on all the publications they have done when the topic is not related to their subject. For example, if my topic is on, say, sitagliptin, and I talk about pancreatitis and pancreatic diabetes, which I may have done research on, but that's not relevant to the topic. So similarly, people who do that, they are just trying to show off, and we should not try to do that. We should try to genuinely, of course, I often use a painting or a poetry or a movie scene to communicate an idea, just like Dr. Prem uses a camel to communicate an idea. That I think is okay. But beyond that, I think we should focus on the audience and give that respect to the audience. In the interest of time, I'm going to combine Dr. Sandeep's next 2 questions together. Also, these questions are connected to each other. One is that, okay, like Dr. Tejal said, let's assume one of our doctors has got an opportunity to now attend a larger conference and be at a larger conference. What kind of opportunity should they, how should they make the most of that opportunity? How should they prepare? What about the body language, the poster, the overall impact, how to maximize impact? So you are there for maybe 20 minutes, maybe your talk is 20 minutes and there's 5 minutes discussion. Maybe there's 15 minutes and 5 minutes discussion. How to make the most of that time and how to prepare for that?
Yeah. So as you speak, I am reminded of the fact that Usain Bolt, he ran only around 20 minutes on the field and he earned $600 million. People say that he ran 20 minutes in all his career, in all those 100 meters, but he earned so much. But to run those 20 minutes, he prepared for the past 20 years. So it is imperative that you prepare very well. Your content should be such. You may have to read for, say, 4 hours for a 20-minute lecture. My suggestion is anybody who wants to speak, please listen to TED Talks. Those are wonderful. They are just 18 minutes or 9 minutes. They condense so much and they bring out everything what is there, what is to be communicated. So content is important. That is one. Communication skills, yes, you learn when you speak. And of course, One is confidence, your hand, your body language, how you greet, your attire, everything is there. Secondly, one has to learn how to create opportunities. So for me, I'll be speaking tomorrow to policemen in their parade ground tomorrow morning. I spoke in that Tavleen Foundation. I go to colleges. So idea is you should know how to create opportunities for yourself. And that is the best way for people to know you. Because we as doctors, we cannot advertise. The only way to advertise is through how you speak, your communication, your small videos which can go, which are informative. Okay? So that is most important. Going to schools helps, going to colleges, corporates, it all helps. So one needs to know that how to create opportunities for yourself. And then when you have an opportunity, make the most of it. And so what I do is, for example, if I have to talk to somebody, to a group of maybe ladies or men who are, so I'm talking about general public, because talking to doctors, I think Unni and Tejal and Prem will tell you more than what I know. For example, I have to tell somebody that you don't have to rush in losing weight. So I say, धीरे धीरे रे मना धीरे सब कुछ होए, माली सींचे 100 घड़ा, ऋतु आए फल होए. This is a doha from 550 years ago. Everything takes time. चिंता ऐसी डाकनी काटी करे जा खाए, वैद्य बेचारा क्या करे, कहां तक दवा खिलाए. 550 years back, Kabir Das ji said there is a connection between what you think and what happens to your body. Recently proved by science, but he said it. So when I say this to people, they imbibe it and then they so inculcate those ideas. So that is very important. So content, communication skills, and of course, some amount of chutzpah, spelled as CHUTPZA, that is there. Although it is taken and as a negative connotation, but then you have the audacity to maybe dress up like that. So when I go to schools, I do skipping and push-ups before I start my talk.
Oh,
I make the kids do that. And then they get into the mood. I'm going to do that tomorrow with the policemen as well. Yeah.
well, I think you've got a unique opportunity to make the policemen skip and dance to your tunes.
Yes.
And like I, the chutzpah that you alluded to, I'm reminded of the Hindi song "Sab Kuch Seekha Humne Na Seekhi." Hoshiar, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Na seekhi public speaking, na seekhi chutzpah. I think that's what you exude, and that's very important because that charisma is very important, and that comes from your brand building. It could be the language matters, the niche which Dr. Tejal has taken. It could be the beautiful imagery, the camels and the horses that Dr. Prem has taken. It could be the mustache and the dress and the uniquely Indian tradition that and the energy that all three of you exude. So I think a lot of combination of things. And I think it's very important in public speaking to have that extra zing to your presentation. It could be, but that charisma is very important because to catch the audience. So now on that, let me go to Dr. Prem and ask him. I'll combine his last two questions. Number one, your views on storytelling. Number two, your views on getting a feedback from your talk. So storytelling, feedback. And number three, you view storytelling, you getting your feedback from your talk. But when a patient is in front of you, how do you take that same skill and communicate to the patient?
Yes. So again, coming to the patient base, talking to the patient entirely different from the professionals, isn't it? So I try to keep it as simple as possible. So I mostly give examples which can be imbibed from the day-to-day life of the patient, because as I said, they are not going to understand the science, isn't it? But they want an answer from you. They might follow, they might not follow you. Maybe 1/3 might follow, 1/3 will not follow, 1/3 will be in a dicey situation, isn't it? So give your opinion in a very simple word. And that is where I would say many of these the alternative people or the alternative system of medicine people, or even the so-called health coach, life coaches and all these people, they talk very well. because they do not have anything to do. Since we doctors, we have a lot of other things to do, we talk very little. HbA1c कितना है? No है. देख लेना, सही तरह से खाना खा लेना, बस, okay? अगली बार सही करना है. This is only minimum interaction that we have with the patients. That has to be changed. Make it very simple, because so to say one example, because autoimmunity, we know that the thyroid disease mostly we see is autoimmune thyroid disease. But people do not know. If you say it is your disease is autoimmune thyroid disease, they are not going to understand. They immediately Google, oh my God, antibodies and all these things will happen, isn't it? Also, they will be very much worried and they will go to another doctor. So what I say is that autoimmune disease is a problem where your immune system is having a dysregulation. So there is some change in the immune system. The example that I give is like you have a security at your home. What is the duty of your security? The security has to take care of you, isn't it? Similarly, the immune system, our immune system has to take care of us. But what happened is that if the security, say for example, the security who is bound to save you from other people, if the security itself comes and beats you, isn't it? The similar things that happens with the autoimmune disease. That is, our immune system is turning against ourselves. So this is most simple one. Okay, fine. They get to understand. Okay, and that can result in hormone variation. Sometimes it can result in increased hormone. Sometimes it can result in decreased hormone. So I mean, they get a little bit of understand. Okay, what is happening? So in that way, this is one example. So similarly, all these things like in diabetes, the diabetes complications, all these things. I mean, try to take simple examples from the day-to-day life, which the people can understand. Because science is not going to be a very hard thing for them to digest. Because we know that science itself has a lot of variations, isn't it? The two extremes. So do not go into into a dicey situation also. Give them your view in a what possible knowledge that you have. That will be the best way that you can get. And that will definitely turn into a good feedback for the patient. Okay, doctor that has told me that this is a thing. This has happened. And how I have to take it forward. That like the hormone deficiency is there, I have to take it lifelong because a hormone, the body is not able to produce a hormone. So that I will have to take it from external. Simple, again, I don't know, a simple example is like when the hormone deficiency, thyroxine deficiency is there. What I tell is that you have a long journey. Your life is a long journey. So you have to travel through. Similarly, say for example, you have to travel from this place to another place, which is 300 kilometers away. And your vehicle has only 2 liters petrol. Is it going to go for a distance that much long or 300 kilometer cover distance? No, it is not going to. So you'll have to refill it. Similarly, your life is long and you have a hormone deficiency, you have to supplement it from outside. So that means that, oh, they understand that. What is, I mean, they try to correlate it with that, the example that given. So similarly, setting up small examples which can be applied to the day-to-day life, that makes them, I mean, they will understand more, makes them more sense also. And so that even, I mean, the practice, your practice will also be much, much better. And the patient will also, okay, they will also go and tell another patient, the doctor has told me like this. So you can, even if you have any problem, you can go and meet this doctor. So like that also, a brand building also will happen in that way. So this is how, I mean, my small examples of connecting with the patients.
So I think it's very important that, like Dr. Prem said, that when you build your brand, use very simple language when you're talking to patients. And also use metaphors to explain. For example, if a patient asks me what is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, so to explain autoimmunity, I say that okay, your blood is fighting against your own gland. Sometimes the blood wins and the gland loses. So I have to give the hormone levels go down. I have to give you more thyroxine dose. Sometimes the gland wins, it makes hormone, so you can reduce the dose. So similarly, using such simple metaphors, and over a period, you should have such a collection of one-liners, which either you can make or you can hear from others. And with that experience, then by the time the patient sees you, you've already rolled out the FAQs and you already have communicated it in a very effective manner. Another thing, whenever you do public speaking, and I've seen even right from young people to very senior people make this mistake, is to exceed the time. So if you've got a 20-minute talk and they say 15 minutes and 5 minutes of discussion, I mean, try to finish in about 14 minutes, because the more time you get for discussion, the better it is. Like Dr. Tejal said, you can't anyway explain the whole science in that 15 to 20 minutes. So give 2 or 3 impact points which they can learn. And the other advantage is, remember, the impact of a speech is not dependent on the duration of the speech. If you see many Hollywood movies, like for example, Silence of the Lambs, the person who won the Nobel Prize, who acted as Hannibal Lecter, he was there only for a few minutes. The movie was 2 hours, but he was there only for 15-20 minutes or even less. But he got the Oscar award for acting. So I think it's not the duration of your talk. It's actually how punchy it is. So immediately grab the audience attention with some, either a case report or a case study or an image, then build your structure and always try to end on a high. Then you are ready to get the applause, and that gives you a high as well. So that's very important. So these are some of my tools. Now let me go on to Dr. Tejal. So now we are in the virtual world, and literally we speaking to each other in the virtual world. And how is it difficult, how to talk to people across the internet through webinars, video conference, and then something very, very important. Very important. In fact, I can't overstress the importance of this. Some of the talks that we may make on Facebook or YouTube may just float around on social media. So what are the common errors doctors make in making such talks, and how we should be careful, because what you say is going to be taken as gospel truth by many people. Secondly, you might give away information which should not be given away, or some other issue. So your thoughts on webinars, etc., and also our own videos on social media, how to make them just right.
Okay, so if I could just take the first part first, like suppose a webinar versus a recorded video. So I would look at it like webinar is more like conversational. So you have a pre-prepared set of slides and you're going to look at the slides and then you're going to talk. Some of the things that I notice, which sometimes we do wrong in webinars, is we haven't really looked at the presentation properly. There are bars and graphs which are very dense with a lot of data. So I think it's always important for us to kind of break down the data that we're presenting and simplify it the way we present it. Also, the other thing in webinars, what I see is that sometimes people present slides and they read every single word on the slide. That is extremely tedious, and we also tend to lose the audience attention. So flashing the slides and using them as a base to summarize or emphasize pertinent points, I think is very important when you're doing like a webinar where there's a conversation, there are speakers and you're talking to each other. A recorded video is completely different. You have only 10 to 15 seconds to grab the attention of the audience before somebody is going to scroll and go to the next video. So unless we get their attention in the first 10-15 seconds, we've lost them. So I feel for recorded videos, we need to script in advance. We need to rehearse in advance. We need to time the rehearsal and make sure that it's not more than 30-45 minutes, maybe a minute or two at best. So it should be short, concise, and we should avoid medical jargon as far as possible, especially if this is a video which you're going to share to lay public. Then, it should minimize medical jargon, but still be scientifically accurate. We can't be loose with the words that we use. A live crowd is dangerous. So I think in a live crowd, always good idea to speak slowly, so your mind has time to catch up with what is coming out of your mouth. I always believe that if you don't know something, say, I don't know, rather than maybe trying to answer something in a roundabout manner and maybe, making it even more complicated. So if you don't know something, then have the courage to say, look, I don't know this, and maybe I can get back to you or whatever. So webinars, like a conversation, recorded videos have to be rehearsed, and live crowd, I think we have to be very aware and conscious when we're speaking to avoid maybe doing something which is politically incorrect. The second part of the question was social media. So the best way that I can describe social media is it's a double-edged sword. So we can use it for our benefit, but we can also end up causing a lot of controversy. So if you remember recently, one of the surgeons floated a video how everybody can cure their diabetes by doing a surgery. And I'm sure all of us were inundated by patients coming into the clinic asking, Doctor, hum ye surgery kar le kya, because mera diabetes theek ho jayega. So I think that we possess great power, and the social media can be a double-edged sword. So we have to be careful. One of the biggest pointers, if I could share about doctors making videos for social media, we need to be positive. We need to give hope. The reason that all the sadhus and the babas and all the health influencers are very successful is because they talk very positively. They don't shame people, they don't blame people, they don't scare them to death that if you don't control your diabetes, you will get a heart attack. They say, come to me, do this exercise, your diabetes will go away. So I'm not saying we make false promises, but I think we should use our language more positively and give hope rather than be very negative. The videos need to be very short, or whatever you're speaking needs to be short and concise. I also think one important point as doctors is we need to avoid using brand names, names of pharmaceutical companies, especially if you're making a public awareness videos. We can't be seen to be outright advertising ourselves. So I'm following this doctor on Insta who every single day puts up an entire video of the surgery that he's conducting, and he's rushing from one operation theater to another. So I think that we can rise above that and maybe keep our dignity and, our dignity intact. So I also think social media, the last sentence that I would say, is a great way to humanize doctors, because there's a big divide between doctors and patients and we are elevated on a pedestal somewhere. So I think humanizing ourselves, so that's why social media is very important, to actually be connected with the lay public. I think it's a great forum.
So completely agree. I think social media is a double-edged sword. And I think it's very important to master social media for us doctors. So we think as doctors, we should just see patients, treat them and go home. But really that's not enough. We have a duty to the larger community around us, not just in our geographic vicinity, but all around the world through social media, to give the correct message. Why all these pseudo people who don't practice scientific medicine, why they are so successful is that they are wonderful communicators. Sometimes I think they have done sometimes they are naturally gifted speakers. Sometimes they have even done some training on communication and how to get into the patient's minds and to capture them. So I think that power is a power which we doctors don't have because we've not been taught. So, but I think it's important to master that, because otherwise tomorrow we will people will put us again and again down, because many people see doctors as people who sit in front of a counter to sell tablets or stents or surgeries, and they think that we don't have anything else to do. To correct that, we should always speak about the right science with the right perspective and fight disinformation. Another point which I want to add on social media is that sometimes by mistake, doctors start sharing identification marks of the patient. Sometimes the patient names are inadvertently put out on social media. And that is something we should be careful about. In fact, if we do see any of our friends by mistake, if the name of the patient or some face of the patient or something has come, we should reach out to them and say, look here, see, there's a mistake in your video, because we might have missed it. So it's our duty to tell our colleagues, dekho, aisa ho gaya hai, aap zara usko video ko just look into it and take care of it. So these things are very important, because at the end of the day, if we doctors don't reach out and support to each other, who will support us if we ourselves don't have unity? So if somebody makes a mistake or a genuine error, instead of laughing at him, which also some people do, we should look at that person as part of our own group and say, Doctor Sahab, dekho aapka na isme thoda sa galti hai, aap thoda dekh lo. So I think this sort of thing is very important that we should inculcate on social media, and that's very important. Now, before we end, we have some more time, and let me tell you, this is one of the record sessions, because we have more than 2,000 doctors live, which is a very, 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 very rare phenomenon. So I think this is, no doubt, the topic is exciting, the speakers are wonderful, and the discussions are in right earnest. And as we speak, I can see the graph shooting up to 2,200 in the last 15 minutes. So I think by word of mouth, people are telling other people to join. It's going viral. But I just want to address something little, I won't say controversial, but there are troublemakers, when you speak. When you speak on stage, there'll be one or two people asking questions, not really because they want to find the answer, but because they already know the answer, or they've just Googled the answer, or they just want to create trouble. And therefore, let me begin by asking Dr. Sandeep, what do you do? How do you address such people? We'll take turns, and all three of us We don't have to look at any particular person or take any particular person's example, but just in general, how do you deal with troublemakers in the audience? Have you seen it? Have you faced it?
Oh yes, oh yes. Every now and then you have, whether you are addressing doctors, you'll have some doctor will stand up. And I remember one incident which is important to be shared. A surgeon got up to ask a interventional cardiologist, a lady, very senior lady, that we use, supposing a Foley's get stuck, we put ether and we break it and we take it out. What do you do when a balloon gets stuck in the heart? And she didn't know. She got confused. And it was a question which probably nobody would have thought somebody will ask. And it has happened several times. But the best thing is, if the question is genuine, supposing the person is not a troublemaker, as Tejal said, acknowledge that you don't know it and you will look it up and come back. That is most important. But if you feel the person is troublemaker, it is important to keep your patience, keep your calm, reply, and then you can actually say that, okay, after the speech, you can come and talk to me. If you feel that he is constantly bugging you, that is one. That is what I do. Otherwise, I think most of the time, if you are confident enough, they will not try to hassle you at all.
Dr. Prem, your thoughts?
Yes, I said in.
Have you faced any? Can you give some examples? Have you faced any such people? And if so, how would you deal? Even if you haven't,
I mean, in conferences or in the professional meetings, so far I have not encountered any such people. All so far was genuine. But when I'm speaking in public, definitely, all of us would have definitely encountered. In some of the videos also, I know that because we have a lot of products like diabetes helping is this product you take, you will reduce your weight. I'm not naming the products, lot many. Similarly, I told about one product, I think maybe 3-4 weeks back. And in our hospital, we got a lot of phone calls because these things are like a big market. I mean, there are a lot of people marketing all these nonsense products and have got many phone calls 3-4 weeks back telling that, how can your doctor say that? We are coming there. We are coming with 15 people. We want to see your doctor and all. And I told my reception people, you stay calm. Whoever wants to come, let them come. I am here. Then we will see it. Like that, we manage. So who are from that point onwards, who are called asking about all these things, they told them, our doctor is here. His consultation time is from 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock. You can come over here and discuss with our doctor. So social media, definitely, as you see, when you're contradicting some of these nonsense products, all these marketing people will come to the picture. They will put negative comments on your video. They will call your hospital, and they will again they will even dhamki bhi de sakte hain. All these things will happen, but stay calm. If you are staying calm and doing your routine work, and you continue to do it, definitely the public will benefit from that. No doubt at all. So that is how I deal with the public.
I think a last question to Dr. Tejal. But before that, I just want to say that if it's a meeting where you are on the stage and if somebody is trying to make statements to insult the speaker or something like that, I think at any cost we'll have to try to maintain our dignity. So that's one thing you'll just have to stoically maintain your dignity at all costs. And if it happens in the online social media, if people troll you, it's very important not to engage with trolls. The moment they troll you or write something bad about you on Facebook or Twitter, if you fall into the trap of responding to it, then you have taken their bait. Then it will go down. The fight will not end. Before you know it, it will become viral, and you'll end up having a fight with somebody who didn't even know. I've seen many people falling into the trap. So consciously on social media, avoid getting into confrontations, and on stage, be as dignified and stoic as possible. And I think the system there's an audience and there are people to take care of things, they will take care of it. Now, there is a question from the audience, which very rarely happens here, but it is from how will you handle, this is to Dr. Tejal, final question, how will you handle patients emotions, or if they are depressed, or they become aggressively in a conversation with you, if you know, things become, patient gets very depressed or very aggressive, how do you handle that?
Thank you, sir. This is hilarious that this doctor is asking me this question, because this is an exercise I've been doing in my clinic for the past 1 week. I'm maintaining a list of things that people do in the clinic, patients do, which trigger me, and I get upset and angry. So I've actually written out a list of things that people do, which makes me. So, there are a lot of people who will start talking about how much fees you charge, how you're looting them, you're writing unnecessary investigations. And some people will start and come and talk to you about how there is a doctor pharma nexus. So there is a lot of things that people come into the clinic sometimes, with the design to upset you. So I think, and also as completing what you said. So see, the intention of the person is to upset you, and when you get upset, you're giving them the victory. So most important is to become aware that there is an agenda that this person has, especially people who are aggressive, they're disruptive. You have to understand that they have an agenda. They have come with an agenda to disturb you. So the way that you can win is not get disturbed. Be very polite. And often when people come and they're argumentative, aggressive, I simply would ask them to leave. Often I just refund the money and I say that, I will not be able to help you, and I would like you to leave. But I say it in a very even tone, not get aggressive or angry at all. And at no time would I insult the person sitting in front of him, because I don't want to give them an opportunity for them to get, even more aggressive. So keeping your calm, maybe asking the person to leave in a very polite way. Often, just refund the money and let them go. A lot of doctors get stuck on the point that, what, if I refund the money, then it becomes like I'm admitting a mistake or whatever. I gave them my time, but sometimes it's smarter to avoid conflict than to engage in conflict. Another thing, which the emotions part, the depression, the anger, so a lot of people start sharing a lot of personal information. They start talking about their divorces, their marriages, their in-laws, and all of that. I think it's important as doctors to not get too much into the personal arena, especially if they're there with their spouse or whatever. I think a psychologist is the right person and the right place where you can refer this person, and they could get counseling done and deal with these emotions and everything there. A lot of time as doctors, we seem to think that it is our job to offer advice or to counsel patients in terms of their personal life and things like that. But I think it's not a great idea to get engaged too deeply with things like that, and maybe refer to the appropriate person. So if it's somebody who's aggressive, keep calm. Don't give them what they want, that is to lose your calm. Be aware of what are the things that trigger you in the OPD. So when you're aware of the triggers, the minute that trigger happens, you immediately become aware and you kind of tend to stay away from the conflict. And it's not cowardly to avoid conflict. I think it's the smart thing to do.
I completely agree. I think it's important not to give in to the agenda of the person with an agenda, because then they have got their agenda. So that's why, it's important not to engage with them in any disruptive manner. And like Dr. Julka has also written in the chat box, you can have a very graded response. You can try the non-violent, milder things first. And also make sure that you have company if you are in an aggressive crowd, in the sense, also have a CCTV in the waiting room, which is an excellent idea. But if you have time on your hands, if there are not many patients waiting for you, and if you feel that the patient is just venting out what is inside, and if you have time, then I think, like Dr. Julka writes, emotional patients require a patient hearing, and time is one of the gifts you can give them, because sometimes meeting a psychologist may not be easy, or they may not want to, or maybe by just listening to you, they themselves will come out with a solution. This often happens with obesity. They talk about their weight. At the end of the day, they themselves will tell you, yes, I know I have to control my stress. I know that I have to control my stress eating. I know I have to, look after my physical activity. So they themselves will come out with a solution. Sometimes they themselves will say, I think I need help. So I think if you have time outside, with not many patients waiting outside, you might like to give that time to the patient. On that note, I think we are also well on time, and this is the last slide. Then we have the Modern SU Symposium. Requesting the USP team to project the questions. So this is about modern sulfonylureas. And I'm going to ask each of you, Dr. Sandeep, followed by Dr. Tejal, followed by Dr. Prem. How can clinicians leverage the potential of modern sulfonylureas in managing type 2 diabetes, especially given that SUs are old treatment, but you have metformin, you have freshly available dapagliflozin at economical cost, you have freshly minted sitagliptin now coming because the patent has expired. Soon other drugs also the patent will expire. In the era of these drugs, how can clinicians make sure that the economical sulfonylureas are used? Dr. Sandeep, your view.
So sulfonylureas, I usually use the analogy that if you have the asking rate in a cricket match at T20 is high, you would obviously send your best batsman in so that the asking rate comes down, and then you can take it from there. We all know that A1C reduction is best with SUs. The usual A1C reduction with DPP-4 inhibitors will be something like 0.5, at most with approximately 1 when you add it with metformin, triple drug at most 1.5. So when you want the sugars to get controlled, I am all for not continuing SUs, if possible, withdrawing them later on, giving all the other drugs, the oral GLP-1s, but I know what works initially is the SU. So I think it is most important, and even most 70% of our patients in our OPDs will be on SUs. Very few of them may be weaned off SUs later on in their diabetes once their sugars are controlled. So I think SUs are here to stay.
Well, I think that's a wonderful analogy. But I'm not sure Dr. Tejal likes the cricket analogy, because recently I posted on Twitter, I asked everybody whether India is going to win the match or lose the match. And she wrote that, is there a don't know, don't care option? So Dr. Tejal, non-cricket analogy maybe on sulfonylureas. But I'm going to end with another cricket analogy, please.
I think sulfonylureas are an indispensable part of our armamentarium to manage diabetes. And I think the more the merrier. Why should we choose one above the other? So when we have a cafeteria of choices, we pick the one that best suits our patient. There are many instances in my patients where I end up using a lot of sulfonylurea, gastric upset with metformin, gastric upset with DPP-4 inhibitor, UTI with SGLT2 inhibitor, does not tolerate a GLP-1 analog. We have so many patients like that. And sometimes, in spite of being obese, insulin resistance, sometimes that is what we do need to use. And another situation where I use sulfonylurea a lot, and which I'm very happy with, is just today. We had a patient who was diagnosed diabetes for the first time, went to Dr. A, and insulin was prescribed. Obviously, they took my appointment the next day because nobody wants to start insulin. So when people come with pretty high blood sugars at the beginning of their diabetes, also sometimes using a sulfonylurea, getting down the sugars quickly, is very reassuring for the patient, because they feel that this is something that can be managed, because getting diabetes is pretty frightening. So I think it's an indispensable part of diabetes therapy. Like Dr. Julka said, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere soon. And I think it's great that our patients have a lot of choice.
I think well said. I think it's very important to put SUs into perspective in the modern era. Dr. Prem, your thoughts?
Yes, sir. So I would begin with our mentor, my mentor and sir's mentor, Professor S.K. Singh, sir. Sir always used to say that sulfonylurea receptors, they are the God-given receptors that we have, because all other SGLT2s, be it a DPP-4 inhibitor or be it an acarbose, voglibose, all these things are like blocking a receptor or blocking an enzyme, and that's how it's functioning. But here we have already a God-given receptor, and there is some orphan ligand in the body itself, isn't it? That's why the receptor is there. So we always say that it is definitely one of the God-given mechanism, and we are just triggering that God-given mechanism to have a better glycemic control. So all said and done, I agree with both the speakers, Sandeep sir and Tejal madam, that SUs are definitely going to stay on. But the most advantageous thing with the newer molecules is that since because of the advent of the newer molecule, we are able to keep the dosage of the sulfonylureas much lower. Like going older days, 6 mg, 8 mg and all. Now, mostly with the 2 to 3 mg at the maximum. Most of my patients, I would say that glimepiride up to 2 mg they are getting well controlled with the adding up with the newer OADs also. So that is another benefit. So we can get a good glycemic control, a prolonged glycemic control, and even delay the onset of the insulin initiation, because we know that that is one of the toughest job that be it at whatever center you are, or whatever clinician you are, that is one of the most toughest job to convince a patient to start the insulin. So that is how I think, or that is the perspective that we can take. So it is never going to go away. It is going to stay with us, but with the wisely you can use it with the lower dosages, and hence we're giving a good glycemic control, a prolonged durable glycemic control, adding up with the newer OADs.
Thank you. And like I just want to talk about sulfonylureas, what Dr. Professor R.V. Jayakumar used to say when I used to work with him. He used to say the punishment should never be one for everybody. The punishment should fit the crime, because somebody is let off with a fine, somebody is jailed for a year, somebody is given some other punishment. Similarly, he said for cricket, for example, in a cricket team, if a team performs badly, you're not going to sack the entire team. You're going to, some of the older players, just because we are old, you're not going to sack. The older players have a lot of steam in them. You are continue to let them play. Similarly, if a younger player has made a single mistake, you're going to continue to let them play. Similarly, I think sulfonylureas, the older sulfonylureas can be retired. Glibenclamide, they're not performing anymore. But if you see the newer drugs like gliclazide and the very new young sulfonylureas like glimepiride, yes, they're still, compared to the sulfonylureas, history of sulfonylureas, they are still relatively younger drugs. They are doing a good job. They're controlling the blood glucose. They have, glimepiride has shown cardiovascular neutrality. If you look at the data with, say, linagliptin, and gliclazide also has benefits. So I think the newer generation sulfonylureas can be continued. And my practical tip is a very low dose of glimepiride or a low dose sulfonylurea works very well in today's practice to control the blood sugars effectively. So let's continue to use these agents, which have been there for years for the benefit of our patients. And on that note, let me thank, I think this has been one of the truly outstanding sessions. We've had record attendance, and that's because of spectacular speakers like Dr. Tejal, Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Prem, who have spoken about speaking so that our delegates can become better speakers. Let me not speak anymore. Over to thanking all of you, including the audience. Over to Dr. Ashley for the final comments and wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Unnikrishnan, sir. It was an hour indeed full of great communications and full of pragmatic approaches. My heartfelt gratitude to our course coordinator, Dr. Unnikrishnan, sir, for sharing his expertise in such an amiable and crisp manner as always, sir. Thank you, all the eminent speakers, Dr. Prem, Dr. Sandeep, Dr. Tejal, for enlightening us with your words of wisdom, and all the delegates for joining us. We had almost 1,700 plus logins. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for all your dohas, Dr. Tejal, for all your pragmatic.
Sorry, 2,300. I just got a message, 2,300 doctors live today.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the correction. And thank you, Dr. Prem, for sharing all the descriptions with us. Thank you, organizing committee and the digital team, for your efforts. All may not be mentioned, but none are forgotten. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night. Thank you. Bye, Tejal. Bye, Prem.
Good night,
Bye,
everyone.
Vani.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.